Deputy Secretary Generals, student officers, delegates, directors, Frau Hövermann, admins, press, and distinguished guests. Welcome to the closing ceremony of the 19th Annual BERMUN2 Conference.
This year, we have once again had the pleasure of being hosted by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. The CAS has welcomed us for many years, and we're once again grateful for their support. We extend our thanks to Dr. Busch-Janser, Herr Bäumel, and Dr. Brüggemann, who have helped us tremendously over the past few days. Please join us in a well-deserved round of applause.
For the past 3 days, you've been deliberating on the various aspects of our conference theme, Rising Nationalism, Fortifying International Institutions. In the opening ceremony, we heard from our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Eckhard Strauss, who considered the nature of nationalism and international institutions, closing with the most important negotiating tips he had learned through his long years of experience working in international institutions. We also listened to a speech by Secretary General Paul Kepler-Gouras, who discussed the nature of inclusive patriotism in relation to nationalism, as well as patriotism's effect on international institutions. The 7 committees have debated solutions to their various topics. Therefore, we would like to invite Mila Ward, one of this year's Deputy Secretary Generals, to take the floor and elaborate and summarize the proceedings of our conference. For over 4 years, Mila has been an active and passionate member of the John F. Kennedy School's MUN program, and we have had the pleasure of working with her to plan this conference over the past months. Her enthusiasm and sense of humor were greatly appreciated in our long meetings. Madam Deputy Secretary General, you now have the floor.
Neo-Nazis, ethnic cleansing, right-wing extremism. Growing up in Germany, I associated this with nationalism. The many scars left on the global community by Germany resurface frequently. World War II started from nationalistic sentiments and the belief of one ethnic group's superiority. Nowadays, this attitude can reflect in the way governments treat marginal groups like refugees. This was discussed in the GA6, and one of their solutions read, to provide financial assistance for states hosting large refugee populations. The lessons Germany learned from this dark era are ingrained in a strong remembrance culture that has shaped society post-1945. Yet, present-day rising nationalism is counteracting these values. Having been educated so thoroughly on the faults of Germany's past, flaunting the German flag, or even speaking too patriotically of my country feels weird. I'm also half American, and during my time in the States, I observed that most Americans do not share this discomfort in showing obvious pride for their country. A Texan friend of mine shared that she had to recite the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in school. If students did not recite it loud enough, they would have to recite it again. One day, she had to recite it 7 times. Different cultures foster different relationships between country and individual, and therefore create varying state identities. In this very room sit individuals from all over the world with various nationalities and different relationships to their own country. The personal example I gave related to education and the education system. State identities can also be affected by topics you discussed in the PC or Junior MUN, free journalism. Many solutions circulated around establishing international regulations in that context. A clause in the PC attempts to ensure trustworthy access to information and media platforms for everyone. one of Junior MUN's solutions, including media literacy and education to empower citizens and critically assess media content. The question that Paul discussed in his speech arises: what is the middle ground between the two extremes of anarchism and totalitarianism, and which individual-state relationship will lead to the most peaceful outcome and the most trust in international institutions? Moana looked at constructivism, which is influenced by the ingrained values and moral norms in a society's culture. This culture, as Paul mentioned, does not necessarily only stem from ethnic or religious backgrounds, but more importantly, from constitutional and ideological values that individuals share. Taking this a step further, Paul discussed the use of inclusive patriotism based on a superordinate identity that will lead to trust in both one's country and international institutions. Additionally, to building trust in international institutions, Professor Dr. Strauss also addressed the importance of non-governmental organizations and their relevance in forming civil societies, again, linking to the sharing of common ideas and interests among individuals. At the end of the day, individuals' identification with their country is of utmost importance when discussing nationalism and all other state-individual relationships. Individuals shape our societies, and as our guest speaker said, nations are their societies. This importance of the individual will show in the year 2024. 54% of the global population is being called to vote. It is expected that right-wing politics will gain lots of power in many of these central states, leading to them becoming more nationalist, furthermore harming our international institutions. This shows that the issues you discussed in your committees are becoming reality and will be the issues we as a generation will face. Throughout these times to come, we must remember that power stems from the collective strength of individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mila, for your detailed remarks reflecting on the work accomplished in the individual committees of the conference, as well as for sharing personal observations on how different states foster different relationships between themselves and their citizens.
Another integral part of BERMUN2 is, of course, the student officer team. We will now entertain 1-minute speeches from the student officers of all BERMUN2 committees and forums to discuss the work done on the theme over the last 3 days and to recount their favorite experiences from their committees.
First, we will hear from the chairs of the Junior MUN, Clement Schmidt, Benno Thomas, and Keo Kaspar.
Honorable Secretariat, esteemed guests, dedicated delegates, hardworking chairs. Imagine you are living in a world where information is not easily accessible, a prison in a way which you get forced into by an oppressive government, in which information and all opinions that may even slightly question the actions of this oppressive government get silenced. Over 2 billion people worldwide experience this harsh reality, the harsh reality of extreme censorship in countries like Eritrea, China, and North Korea. While extreme censorship can be a huge threat, it is also important to acknowledge the other side of the coin. Censorship can also be used for good, and when it used in responsible amounts, which is something that delegates in our committee often realize. But how does this tie into our theme of rising nationalism? Fostering nationalism is a favorable thing for authoritarian and populist governments, as it unites one nation against another, creating a us against them mentality. Further, it is also important to recognize what role international institutions could play in this by ensuring international press freedom, at least to a certain degree. Truth would be spread, and it would be harder for totalitarian regimes to stay in power and continue to oppress their citizens. In the words of American poet journalist Charles Bukowski, censorship is a tool for those who have the need to hide actualities from themselves and from others.
Lobbying produced many controversial amendments at the start of debate on Friday, creating a mix of educating and creating guidelines to ensure safe censorship, as well as allowing governments to monitor and more easily censor non-governmental news outlets, such as passing harsher regulations to penalize journalists who criticize the government. They also saw monitoring and protecting as a way to prevent terrorism and security threats. Finally, we added propaganda by censoring education controlled by governments and allowing book banning. These were part of the 19 amendments passed out of a total of nearly 40 amendments discussed. At the end, we managed to pass our resolution as a whole, and over the 3 days, the delegates of the Junior MUN Committee surprised us with their wonderful commitment and dedication to the BERMUN2 conference and debate. We would like to thank them. And they also managed to submit 350 committee observations spanning 20 pages.
We had heated debates not just about our topic, but also about what exactly an adjective was and whether or not claimants should do the Gangnam Style dance. But despite their differences, the MUN still formed an incredibly strong bond. From first assembling a seemingly random group from all corners of the world, we have seen them learn and grow as a committee. They have become not just capable delegates, but also avid writers of committee observations, as previously mentioned. For example, we had dozens upon dozens of committee observations shipping literally every single delegate with every admin and chair, making the web of love relations in our committee harder to understand than that of a Shakespeare play. The delegates' enthusiasm was such that despite our continued requests to not do so, they simply kept raising their placards even before we had called on them. But it was not just the delegates that made this conference a joy to be a part of. We must also, of course, extend our sincere thanks to our committee admin Scout for all her hard work in making everything run so smoothly. And so, give the delegates of the Junior MUN such a loud round of applause that they hear you all the way from where they're listening.
Clemens,
Unfortunate timing.
thank you for your extensive and detailed remarks. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
Next, the presidents of the Security Council, Alfred Justus, James Simanowicz, and Yara Hanshin.
Dear delegates, esteemed secretariat, and honored guests, it's the South China Sea, not the International Waters Sea. Thus was the declaration of, surprisingly, the delegate of China. But who do these waters belong to? This body of water in the northeastern Pacific is claimed by numerous states that border it, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and, of course, China. Furthermore, this area is vital for both international shipping and control of the Pacific. These member states, already hesitant to scale back their claims to this incredibly valuable area, are further hindered by nationalism. The us above them ideology of nationalism stands completely against the compromise and sacrifice required to solve territorial disputes like this. Despite the specter of nationalism our committee succeeded in unanimously passing a binding resolution with 11 clauses. Delegates and chairs of the SC, it was an honor to work with you.
BERMUN would have been the same if it had taken place at the Berghain Club. What I've come to realize is that this conference is not about what you perceive it to be. It is not about the venue, it's not about the suits or the ties. BERMUN is about something more profound. It's about your ideas, your thoughts, and your questions. The Security Council has done an excellent job at this by finding sustainable solutions to the South China Sea conflict. We have defined new borders and distributed its long disputed islands. Thank you to all delegates for the work you invested into this conference. It is reasonable to say that because this conference is about you, you might as well have been at the Berghain, the Tiergarten, or the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. It would have still been BERMUN.
Delegates, does Alfred Justus's computer contain the nuclear codes? We may never know. But truly, the mysteries surrounding our committee president were the only ones that the SC delegates didn't manage to solve with absolutely staggering competence. It was not only the rigor and diligence of my fellow chairs James and Alfred that made the Security Council such a successful committee, but the enthusiasm and wisdom of each and every one of our delegates, all of who have made my first BERMUN chairing experience incredible. For this, I want to extend my deepest thanks. Through your many contributions, whether in the form of clauses or committee observations, you've demonstrated capability, initiative, and of course, a deep mistrust of our dear president. So as I see you off with a very heavy heart, we are unfortunately all left wondering, does Alfred possess the power to become a mouse? And more importantly, can he jet ski? Well, I guess we'll never know. Thank you, delegates of the SC. Please rise, this is your applause.
Thank you for your remarks and interesting references. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
The next speech will be coming from the presidents of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, Zeja Bispolka, Christian Grieve, and Dalian Heinemann.
I was going to take my computer. Yeah. Over the past few days, we've heard a few definitions of the word nationalism. For example, identification with one's own nation and support for its own interests to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. Slobodan Milošević was a Serbian Yugoslav politician and the president of Serbia. After the collapse of Soviet Yugoslavia, Milošević introduced a populist political style to Serbia, fostering anti-Serb sentiments in the rest of the successor Balkan states. These rapidly deteriorated into conflict between Serbia and the Kosovo Liberation Army, causing the Serbian government to launch a massive offensive to defeat the army. Capitalizing on strong nationalist beliefs among the Serbian population, Milošević allegedly ordered an ethnic cleansing program of the Kosovo Albanians. Over 140,000 people were killed in the process. This trial brought our judges back into 1999 to investigate the atrocities and massacres that took place. I believe that I speak for the tribunal when I say that regardless of the jury's verdict, the identification with one's own nation and support for its own interests above all others most certainly led to the exclusion and or detriment of minority groups in the Balkans in 1999.
Thank you, Zeja, for tying back our case to the conference team of Rising Nationalism. Even though we had a very fruitful debate, we also had some fun moments, ranging from some of the best quotes I've personally heard to the annual war with the ECOSOC. We sure had some moments to break the formal barrier and have some laughs in between. In our first mock witness questioning, we had the great debate of tea versus coffee, with the witness being the reincarnated Queen Elizabeth II defending the side of tea. We had the following great quote as well. Have you ever heard of the Boston Coffee Party? No. but you have heard of the Boston Tea Party. No. Throughout the conference, we had some other great quotes as well. For me personally, most notably, assuming it is correct, because it is correct, from a judge out of our committee surely gave us all a laugh. We had a very close and personal relationship with our advocates who took the habit of immediately running out of the door the second the word dismiss is even mentioned. Looking at you, prosecution. We also had a lot of fun with the defense 3,800-page piece of evidence. With the ECOSOC right next door, we had some great, non-existent soundproof walls, allowing us to hear more than one very passionate speech from the USA of the ECOSOC. So surely we weren't the best neighbors either.
Our work in this committee would not be possible without the hard work of our advocates. Both advocate teams over the past few weeks have worked strenuously on the memoranda, evidence lists, and joint stipulation. We would also like to thank our witnesses who took time out of their committee to provide excellent and energetic testimony to the tribunal. Of course, this tribunal would not function without the excellent work of our judges. They asked excellent questions to witnesses and advocates and worked arduously towards a judgment. We'd also like to extend a big thank you to our committee admin, Emma, and the admin team in general for not only helping during normal proceedings, but also providing us with the amazing food we had and making this whole conference possible. After extensive deliberation over the past 2 days, the International Criminal Tribunal of the former Yugoslavia has convicted Slobodan Milosevic on the charges of orchestrating, facilitating, and failing to prevent crimes against humanity, facilitating and failing to prevent mass murders, facilitating and failing to prevent war crimes, and attempting and failing to prevent genocide.
So, judges, advocates, witnesses, and admins of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, please rise. This is your applause.
Thank you for your remarks and the verdict of your case. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
We will now be hearing from the presidents of the Economic and Social Council, Jonas Bordet, Maike Hardester, and Johanna Kyrieleis.
Made in China. There's so many people that despise these 3 words. But made in China is mostly good for everyone. You see, if the US imports plushie bears from China and exports MRI machines, both countries profit. They both get something otherwise unavailable for that price. International institutions hold together international trade. It would not be possible without them. Nationalists fear international institutions because they fear losing power. But by weakening international institutions, nationalists harm their national interests. In the last 3 days, we found solutions to the drawbacks of international trade, like job loss and dependencies. Thereby, we can weaken the nationalist argument for isolation and increase wealth for all. Next, you'll hear from my amazing co-chair, Johanna.
Thank you very much. The debate in our committee covered a wide range of topics, from addressing tariffs, economic dumping and protectionism, to trying to ensure free trade. During lobbying, delegates passionately collaborated to create constructive resolutions that tackled the problems of facing free trade and effectively formed alliances. All resolutions and the entirety of debate was aimed at rising nationalism, fortifying international institution, this year's conference theme. We debated 3 resolutions on the topic of ensuring fair and equal access to international markets, of which 3 passed. Although we had a rather slow start to debate, it progressed fruitfully after we held a moderated and unmoderated caucus. As we conclude this journey of debating in the ECOSOC, I would like to take a moment to thank my fellow chairs Maike and Jonas, as well as our admin Abriha and everyone else who made this conference possible. It has been a pleasure to work with you. All in all, we had a very successful and productive conference. Thank you.
One in 5 Indians is dependent on alcohol. Wouldn't the delegate of Qatar not agree that we cannot just take that away from them? From attempting to ban alcohol across the globe in a resolution with the topic of ensuring equal access to international markets, to an effort by the US to dissolve the Japanese government and convert the whole country into a global forum, there was not a dull moment in the ECOSOC. The constant shipping of Qatar to South Korea led us to believe that the BERMUN seating chart helps people find their soulmate. This was, of course, until the delegates of Croatia and France rearranged said seating order so that they could be together. Upon receiving noise complaints from the ICTY, many of our delegates seemed much more interested in submitting committee observations to them than to our own committee. Despite this, certain delegates somehow remained bored, and we observed their incredible prowess at Brawl Stars. Chairing ECOSOC along Jonas and Johanna has truly been a delight. And I believe we have fostered a sense of community and friendship within our committee. Delegates and admins of the ECOSOC, please rise. This is your applause.
Thank you for your enlightening remarks on the illogicies of nationalist economic policies and on the interesting moments of the ECOSOC. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
The next speech is from the chairs of the GA6 Legal Committee, Greta Zoll, Benjamin von Schweinitz, and Eva Backer.
Honorable Secretariat, fellow chairs, distinguished delegates, this year's the Legal Committee discussed the topic of reevaluating the Refugee Convention of 1951 and the Protocol of 1976. In the past few years, migration policy has grown in significance, fueled by numerous wars and natural disasters that have shaken the world. As a result of this, there exists a very uneven distribution of refugees among member states. Many of the affected countries face challenges stemming from their geographical location, historical context, and integration issues. In the light of these complexities, it is crucial that we create a robust regulatory framework to tackle these pressing issues. Let us collectively strive for a more compassionate and effective approach to handling the displacement of persons on a global scale.
Okay. Allow me to now provide you an overview of the Legal Committee's diligent work over the past 3 days. Amidst the complexities of aligning diverse national policies, our committee formed 4 distinct lobbying groups. These groups, fueled by constructive dialogue, crafted resolutions that span over a spectrum of opinions. From advocating for robust legal protections for refugees to imposing stringent border restrictions, our delegates delved into the minutiae of each clause. Our delegates exhibited unwavering commitment in scrutinizing every detail and specification. Their engagement was palpable, as evidenced by the active participation of a substantial number of delegates. However, the highlight of today lies in a pivotal clause added to a later passed resolution, a collective acknowledgement of responsibility. This clause squarely places the Western nations at fault for ongoing refugee crisis. So, safe to say that the word controversial was a very big thing in this committee. We are proud to announce that out of 4 debated resolutions, we passed 2.
In our Legal Committee of 2024, in addition to fruitful debate, we had a lot of fun. Delegates started the morning with meditative Just Dance warm-ups and continued with engaging and fun debate. Throughout the conference, many questions were raised, such as the ambiguity of India's age, the flavor of refugees, and the argumentative worth of buttoning up your blazer before giving a speech. Our karaoke sessions rounded up our day perfectly, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for making this a truly unforgettable conference for us. We also want to issue a special thank you to our wonderful committee admin, Niels. So delegates and admins of the legal committee, please rise. This is your applause.
Thank you. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
The next speech is from the chairs of the Disarmament Committee, Josie Riemer, Leoba Ochsenreiter, and Philipp Harashta.
Honorable Secretariat, esteemed participants, imagine a world in which the chance of a nuclear devastation no longer looms above us. A world that makes our joint future not being overshadowed by the threat of an atomic blackout. This isn't a fantasy. As with agreeing collectively on the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, this could be an achievable reality. Now, this treaty is a good first approach to the topic of counteracting nuclear armament. But yes, in fact, those member states that refrained to sign it do have a point. It favors countries that had capabilities of building a program after World War II. Yet, in combination with nationalism on the rise across the globe, the existence of the NPT faces unprecedented challenges. Nationalistic ideals often complicate international cooperation, and so reassessing the NPT gets harder. Recognizing that nuclear weapons, with their devastating power to erase millions of lives within moments, demand our immediate and undivided attention. The NPT stands as our collective defense against the spread of those demonic arms, but its potential only gets strong when our commitment to counteracting those problems lacks. The spirit of our Disarmament Committee one could experience over the past days can be summarized with, let's not wait for tomorrow that may never come if we fail today.
We debated the topic of nuclear proliferation that strengthened the basis of communication and cooperation in the case of nuclear weaponry and the safety of nuclear energy production. Although it was clear that several countries had opposing policies, it seemed like everyone was striving towards compromise to develop good solutions for this pressing issue. The debate was very lively and had several outrageous moments, but in the end it was a great discussion. After some slower sessions, we decided to have a moderated caucus, which brought the debate back to life. We had 3 resolutions, of which 2 passed in a very fruitful debate. It would have been impossible without the amazing admin Rosie, so thank you so much.
Outside of our debate time, we also had some very talented delegates. With plenty of poems in our committee observations and the Everybody Wants to Rule the World karaoke session, we realized our committee not only had strong speakers, but also talented singers, poets, and jokesters. Although our delegates were talented in many ways, one area where they lacked expertise was in their spelling, especially of my co-chair Philip's name. We also had so many misspellings that we had to rename Philip to Flippy, or Flip for short, and we had one of our delegates write Philip's name on their hand just so that they could remember how to spell it. Our delegates also had some pronunciation issues, especially with a very vital word to our topic, proliferation. In order to alleviate our delegates' stress on this issue, we renamed proliferation to proliferation for obvious reasons. Overall, it was a great joy to chair this committee and work with my wonderful co-chairs and all of you delegates. Thank you for making this BERMUN2 a great one. Delegates of the DC, please rise. This is your applause.
Thank you. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
Next, the chairs of the Political Committee, Samuel Beer, Louisa Masson, and Yang Yipang, shall be addressing the forum.
Boris Nemtsov, Sun Lee, Alexei Navalny, Daphne Galiza, and so many more. Each and every one died while speaking out against oppressive regimes. and were then brutally silenced. Those responsible were never brought to justice due to impunity. In a digital world such as ours, the spread of propaganda and fake news over news outlets is as high as ever. Nowadays, the very media we rely on to provide us with truthful news is influenced by the nationalistic narratives of a given country. It is because of this that at this year's conference, the Political Committee discussed the topic of creating guidelines for the integrity of journalism. Delegates formed alliances and debated the ins and outs of how best to tackle this issue. I'm grateful to have had the opportunity of working with our delegates and seeing all of you interact with each other to find solutions. Another integral part of our committee were, of course, the admins, Nomi and Ella. Thank you very much. I also thank my fellow chairs, Sam and Yang for this chairing experience.
For the start of the first session, we entertained a spirited Just Dance as an entire committee. And I must say, we're fortunate to have the best dancers of this conference at PC. During the process of lobbying, we had 3 groups formed, and in the end, 2 of these 3 resolutions passed. Through the fruitful debates of the resolutions, we've witnessed the dedication and passion demonstrated by each and every delegate in this committee. And at that point, I want to mention that we're immensely proud to note that every delegate spoken up and has spoken up. Of course, we also had some issues, but what is a BERMUN without broken equipment? Fortunately, our wonderful co-chair, Louisa, managed to fix our podium with some paper cups. Turned out it wasn't that stable, and our delegate of Mexico came up with a fitting statement saying that our podium is just as stable as their country's government. Furthermore, in the end, we all agreed on that Sam does instead look like Flash from Zootopia, the sloth. You should have seen him typing. It's exactly the same. However, I want to thank you all for making my first chairing experience unforgettable.
In figuring out how to express our passion for this conference, we found the words of another helpful. Friends, BERMUN, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to praise BERMUN, not to bury it. The debate that delegates do lives after them. So let it be with the political committee. The noble BERMUN hath told you the PC was ambitious. If it were so, it was glorious. And gloriously hath the PC answered it. Here, under leave of the Secretariat and the rest, for my co-chairs are honorable, so are they all honorable members. PC hath brought many delegates home to BERMUN, whose knowledge did the general debate fill. You all did see that on the Jakob Kaiser's eye, the PC thrice presented us a resolution which we did thrice debate. This was perfection. I speak to praise what delegates spoke, and here I am to speak what I do know. What cause withholds you then? You all did love BERMUN once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to praise for it? O judgment, thou art fled to your homes now, and delegates have found their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the PC there with BERMUN, and I must pause till it come back to me. Delegates of the PC, please rise. This is your applause.
Thank you very much for your detailed and Shakespeare-themed speech. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
Finally, the editor-in-chief of the press team, Zach Dye.
Honorable Secretariat, directors, delegates, and distinguished guests, it has been my honor to stand before you as this conference's press editor-in-chief. When many members of our team left after BERMUN 1 last year, We were worried about how our team would operate for this conference. This team, though, with its many new members, has made me proud and has proved itself with the work that it has accomplished. During this conference, we produced quality editions of BERMUN Times dealing with this conference theme. We, through our work, hope to have reflected journalists who work tirelessly to fight against nationalism by holding those in power responsible through the written word. The written word is a powerful tool and is able to document, hold accountable, and influence. It is because of this that we recognize the great honor and responsibility it is to be the press team. It is our wish that as you leave this conference, you will look fondly on this experience, and that through the articles, cartoons, and photographs that constitute these editions of the BERMUN Times, that they will remind you of all you learned during this conference and of the great times you had. To conclude this speech, I would like to turn to the press. Thank you for all of your hard work and your devotion to each other and to the work that was before us. Please rise. This is your applause.
Thank you. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
Thank you, student officers, for your hard work in committees and before the conference. We've enjoyed the process of working with you and will never forget our long meetings and extended preparation sessions. A big thanks for your commitment and professionalism. Now, I would like to introduce Maya Hauf, our President of the General Assembly, with whom we've had the pleasure of working with since December to create this year's BERMUN2 conference. Maya has been instrumental in virtually every aspect of preparation for the conference, from delighting our staff team with her riddles and physics references, to meticulous color coding systems and in-depth theme discussions. Working with you has made the preparations for the conference all the more enjoyable. Madam President of the General Assembly, you now have the floor.
Peace and security, friendly relations between nations, and international cooperation in solving international issues. These are the goals that are outlined in Article 1 of the United Nations Charter. They are the guiding framework and purpose for all action undertaken by the UN. Despite efforts to implement these goals, we have seen them compromised, in part due to the resurgence of nationalism, including the invasion of Ukraine and the outbreak of war in Gaza, as well as the rise of radical politicians. The problematic view of nationalism, which we have focused on at this conference, directly hinders international cooperation. In a 2023 interview, the President of the General Assembly highlighted the importance of unity within institutions themselves, stating that a lack of harmony in a system undermines the system as a whole. Nationalism and its power to divide states along ideological lines jeopardizes this harmony. We are presented with a direct conflict between nationalism and the interests of a wider global community. 2 years ago, the Russian Federation vetoed a resolution in the Security Council calling for humanitarian aid to Ukrainian civilians. In doing so, the Russian delegation prioritized their nationalist beliefs rather than furthering human rights and cooperation. On a wider scale, the excessive prioritization of an individual state's self-interest becomes damaging to the institution to which it belongs. So what can we do? If our institutions are being held hostage by individual member states, how can we foster cooperation and unity? In contrast to nationalism, the theory of internationalism advocates for more international cooperation on political and economic affairs for states' mutual benefit. On a social level, internationalism promotes civic engagements on international issues. Proponents of internationalism believe that uniting humanity above racial, political, or class divides is necessary to achieving the long-term goals of states, as these take priority over short-term disputes. The belief in internationalism founded the United Nations nearly 80 years ago, and by extension, it has brought us here today. At the heart of MUN is the belief that global issues require global solutions, and that our best work occurs when we discuss our ideas and opinions with one another. Despite its role in fostering cooperation, the way the United Nations is run is criticized heavily. According to its critics, the UN is elitist, bureaucratic, expensive, and ineffective in times of crisis. And their concerns are justified. The Security Council, in particular, is structured with unequal power distribution and lacks representation of South American and African countries in the most important roles. This means that it can be easily influenced by nationalism, as the permanent 5 states can block crucial decisions should it threaten their own interests. So as we leave this conference today, what is it that we can take away? I will propose 3 solutions: UN reform, support for internationalism, and social engagement. Firstly, we will consider UN reform. The Deputy Executive Director of UNICEF and Assistant Secretary General Kul Gautam has proposed several solutions to reform the United Nations. His solutions encourage the democratization and diversification of power in the institution. In doing so, they promote internationalism as a way to foster cooperation. Firstly, Gautam calls for the United Nations to be democratized. His suggestion is to expand veto powers to 7 permanent members, consisting of India, Brazil, China, Russia, the United States, Nigeria, and the European Union. The remaining spots would be divided into semi-permanent and rotating representations among other global powers, including economically weaker states. An additional option for limiting individual states' power is the changing of UN funding. During the Trump administration, the United States threatened to significantly reduce its funding to several UN agencies. As the biggest financial contributor to the UN, as shown on the graph behind me, the United States has significantly more influence in the institution as a whole. The United Nations can be incapacitated if a member state amasses too much control in the institution. Therefore, we need to diversify its supporters to avoid too much influence from any one source. And although we can be critical of the UN, we must also recognize that the UN is not and will never be perfect. On Thursday, we heard from our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Eckhard Strauss, who argued that reforming the United Nations is misplacing our focus, as the P5 states are unlikely to ever give up their veto powers. Despite its flaws, the United Nations is functioning, albeit imperfectly. So secondly, we must support internationalism in institutions, with or without structural reforms. Professor Dr. Strauss spoke on transactional national interest diplomacy. Internationalism can foster agreement, even if 2 parties are unable to agree on the root cause of an issue. Cooperation can still take place if there is a shared understanding that action must be taken. We see this in the example of Ukraine. Weeks after the outbreak of war, a General Assembly resolution condemning the Russian invasion passed with an overwhelming 141 votes in favor. The UN organ representing all member states was able to unite and come to a consensus. In a forum where each state was able to weigh in equally, unity in support of the UN Charter prevailed. And even without extensive reform, fostering a shared belief in internationalism can lead to more cooperation. Finally, we must further the influence of internationalism socially. While nationalism leads to division, internationalism leads to cooperation, and the same holds true for individuals. We can integrate internationalism into local institutions, and in many ways, this is what all of you are doing by participating in MUN, by taking active concerns on issues that face a community larger than just ourselves, our school, and our city. However, we can also further internationalism by active civic engagement. We see anti-nationalist movements demonstrating the impact we can make on an individual level. In recent weeks, protesters in cities across Germany have gathered to speak out against the rising influence of far-right parties. In the opening ceremony, DSG Moana showed a poster at one of such demonstrations, which read, "Kooperation statt Nationalismus," cooperation, not nationalism. By advocating for diversity, cooperation, and inclusive national identities, these protests show the power of internationalism in uniting groups of people, just as nationalism can in a negative sense. So when we consider what we can take away from this conference, we must consider how institutions can be constructed to promote internationalism and to take an active role as individuals in current political issues. Over the past few days, you have actively engaged in this. In your discussions in committee, you have faced situations in which your interests conflicted with others, and yet you were still able to unite in the spirit of collaboration. We, as a young generation, must remain committed to international and mutual benefit. The most pressing issues facing us, such as climate change or new modes of interaction posed by digitalization, will require us to reevaluate our approach to these issues. We must take what we have learned in the past 3 days to our own lives and strive for internationalism and unity over nationalism and division. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, for your remarks on the events of the conference. We appreciated your elaboration on what action we can take to address our conference theme, especially on the idea of internationalism and the possible need for UN reform. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
To reflect on the work that has been done over the conference days, the press team has put together a closing video. Please direct your attention to the screen.
So, do you recognize any of these people? I was hiding under the table, so I didn't see his face. But I heard him. He was singing along to that song in the plenary. Do you remember the name of the song? I think it was I Want It That Way?
Yeah, Backstreet Boys, I'm familiar. Okay. Number 1, could you please sing the opening to I Want It That Way?
Really? Okay. You are my fire.
Number 2, keep it going.
The one desire.
Number 3.
Believe when I say.
Number 4.
I want it that way.
Tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a heartache.
Tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a mistake.
Now number 5.
I never want to hear you say.
Woo!
I want it that way.
Chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 stole the paper.
Oh, I forgot about that part.
Could you look into the camera and say what this year's theme is?
Our theme this year will be all about nationalism and...
Can you say what the theme is?
Fortifying international institutions.
That's incorrect. Sam. Could you look into the camera and say what this year's conference theme is, please?
Fortifying institutions amid rising nationalism.
That is incorrect, thank you. This year's conference theme is Rising Nationalism, Fortifying Global Institutions. It's great to see how invested our staff team is in this year's conference.
Can I respond to that momentarily?
No, you cannot. Now, what's your name?
Philip.
Philip, great. What do you think
what's your name?
What do you think about climate change?
Climate change is a very important issue that we need to address on an international scale.
Right. Are you an eco-fascist?
No.
Would you consider yourself a patriot?
I would consider myself to be a careful patriot. Seeing as I have grown up in Germany, I have become accustomed to a hypersensitivity to types of...
Didn't you just say that you thought climate change was bad, that we needed to address it?
Yeah.
Sounds like a very extreme statement to me. Are you trying to take people's rights away? Are you trying to express yourself in a nationalistic way? Have you ever heard of ecofascism? Are you in a WhatsApp group called Ecofascists Unite?
I believe all those terms you just brought up are not an actual thing.
Are not what?
I think that you're interrupting me and you're not promoting democratic discourse. That's important, Solomon.
Sounds pretty nationalistic. Sounds pretty extreme to me what you're saying right now.
I am an extremist.
You don't think that ecofascism is a thing?
No, I would not consider it to be.
That's exactly what an ecofascist would say. There's an extremist at BERMUN. For the safety of this year's conference, we will leave this facility as we have discovered.
Come here, Solomon!
Ah!
Come here, I'm an extremist!
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, esteemed guests, over the past 3 days of this BERMUN2 2024, you have written speeches, you have debated, attacked each other violently during committee time, and you have made this conference a great experience for everyone involved. Now, let's take this time to review some of the highlights that the press team has collected over the past couple days and in preparation of this year's conference.
Cookie art. Cookie artist. Such a fan, bro. Can I get one? Thank you. Yes. Oh my god. I thought you'd never ask. Thank you.
Thank you to the BERMUN2 press team for your wonderful and engaging video. Your contributions have greatly contributed to the vibey vibes of the conference. In conjunction, we would also like to thank the press team for their articles, journalistic insight, active Instagram, and good cheer that they bring to BERMUN2. We would like to take this time to extend our gratitude to everyone involved in executing this year's BERMUN2. First and foremost, we would like to thank all of you. As delegates, your preparation, professionalism, and enthusiasm has allowed this year's conference to be a success. Of course, none of us would be here if it weren't for each of our directors. We thank you for your commitment and all of the time you have spent to provide this opportunity to your students. From registration to preparing your delegates' research and writing resolutions, we would not be successful without your guidance and support. Let's take this moment to extend our gratitude to each of our directors who have given up personal time to travel with you and to be here with us today.
we'd particularly like to thank our BERMUN2 directors for their work ethic and the extra hours they've spent with and for us in shaping BERMUN2 2024. Their hard work has truly paid off, and we could not be more thankful to them. We could especially like to emphasize the contribution of Mrs. Robertson, our conference manager, from conference communication to ensuring that the platform functions properly and reminding us of the many deadlines. Mrs. Robertson has been an essential part of our team. Thank you for your incredible commitment to the conference and to us. We would love to get you a gift, and we would be getting chocolates for you, but we know you don't like that. You don't like flowers either, so we're left with a restaurant certificate, but not even your husband knows your favorite restaurant. So when you tell us what it is, we will have your gift ready. Thank you.
The admin and approval panel took care of so much, and it is hard to name it all. With every challenge we face, these committed individuals take the front line, multi-managing everything from our resolutions' grammar and spelling errors to make sure our committees are well-fed and organized. For their relentless efforts, they deserve the thanks of everyone who took part in BERMUN. We thank the heads of admin, Cosima and Julius, as well as their entire team.
Another vital, yet below the radar organ of BERMUN2 is the tech team. This year, the tech team held an entirely student-run live stream, enabling the ceremonies to be shared outside of the plenary. We extend our gratitude to the tech team, especially the head of the tech team, Ray Gromas. Thank you.
We would also like to once again thank Alexander Ginter and the entire team from MUN World for the amazing conference platform we used.
Over the last few days, it has been a pleasure to witness the work of the conference. All of your contributions helped make this BERMUN2 the success it was, and for that we cannot thank you enough. We will now be distributing certificates to each school. Delegates that hold speeches in the opening ceremony, when we call your school's name, please approach the dais and receive your certificates. Please ensure that only one delegate per school approaches the dais. Please do not distribute these to your fellow participants now, but wait until after the closing ceremony. The American School of Warsaw and the Cologne International School unfortunately had to leave once the proceedings has to leave the proceedings slightly early and has already received their certificates. First, the Albert Einstein Gymnasium. Right. Next, the Anne Frank Gymnasium. The Arndt Gymnasium Dahlem. The Berlage Lyceum Amsterdam. Berlin Brandenburg International School. Berlin Cosmopolitan School. The Berlin Metropolitan School. Die Christophorus Schule Rostock. Die Drei-Linden-Gymnasium. Europäisches Gymnasium Bertha von Suttner. Die Evangelische Schule Frohnau. And after that, the German School of Pretoria. Die Goethe-Gymnasium Lichterfelde. ISG Rostock. Die Johann Gottfried Herder Gymnasium. The John F. Kennedy School. The John Lennon Gymnasium. Der Katholische Theresienschule. Leibniz Gymnasium Berlin. The Nelson Mandela School. Nyborg Gymnasium and IB. Paulus Pretorius Gymnasium. Prem Tinsunolanda International School. The Primo Levi Gymnasium. The Rosa Luxemburg Gymnasium. Schiller Gymnasium. The London Oratory School. And finally, the Werkstattschule Rostock. We have now reached the end of our conference. Thank you for all of your work, and we hope to see some of you back here next year. It is now my distinct honor to declare the 19th Annual BERMUN2 Conference as officially closed.
Before you leave, we have a very few brief announcements. As you leave the CAS, please remember to leave your plastic badge holders in the boxes by the door so that they can be reused. Merch will be sold at the front desk, and the admin team will be collecting any bottles from the conference. You may also take the placards in front of you home as a keepsake from the conference.
As you leave, we hope that you will enjoy the music from BERMUN legend Finn Craft. Perfect, thank you. Thank you.
You're bringing a little bit of your culture into it as well to show that. That's very
Thought it was important because we had. Oh.